good people? Welcome back to the Basketball Society podcast. This is Martin Sories. I'm here for more NBA Finals coverage and analysis. I just finished watching Game 3. Denver takes a 2-1 series lead over Miami with a 109-94 win in Game 3 in Miami. Make sure you are subscribed wherever you're listening from. Be aware that all of these episodes are on the Basketball Society YouTube channel, as well as more video episodes if you want to watch more and stay tapped in for more episodes. I really enjoyed at the beginning of this game the fact that Jimmy Butler, Bam had gotten going first. He got a couple early buckets. Jimmy Butler got going. I think he had 10 points in the first quarter. And Murray and Jokic for Denver got themselves going pretty early right away, especially Jamal Murray. I think he had eight quick points in the first quarter. He was really aggressive right away. That they're just way more dangerous when Jamal Murray is in rhythm and aggressive. One of the main reasons why I pick Denver, why I feel like Denver wins this series, is because right now, I mean, you always look at the matchup of stars. Both of these teams have two stars. I thought the way the game started that this would be the best game so far of this. I thought we were finally going to get that one of those games where everyone is playing well. You know, like I thought Jimmy was aggressive in this game. He finished with 28. I want to talk a little bit more about Jimmy in a little bit, but he was aggressive. He got going early. They were doing a good job getting Aaron Gordon off him so he could post up a little bit more. Once his post ups were really creating offense and scoring for him, that opened up other things. So Jimmy got going. Bam had a really good game too. Like Jimmy and Bam both played really well. They both had good games. Both did, really good things throughout the game. They combined for 50 points, right? But when your counterparts on the other side, Jamal Murray and Jokic, combined for 66 points, you're not going to beat that unless Miami is getting one of those games where they hit 15 plus threes and they get multiple guys in double figures and a lot of people are scoring and contributing. That's the only way to offset that kind of explosion from Denver's two stars, and that's why I favor Denver in this series. Even though this wasn't a game where I felt like all four of them played their best, Murray and Jokic clearly outplayed Jimmy and Bam, even though they played well. I just feel like at everyone's best, Murray and Jokic will outperform Jimmy and Bam at their best. I feel like Miami as a team at their best could be and has a good shot against Denver at their best. Like both teams at their best, from what we've seen, at Miami at their best, they put up 40 plus point quarters. I mean, they have the ability to get hot. We know that. We've seen that. We should know that by now. Denver in this game looked really similar to what they were doing in game 1. 20 of their first 24 points came in the paint, and Denver it was 24-24 after the first quarter. And 20 of those 24 points for Denver in the first quarter were in the paint. Denver finished the game with 60 points in the paint out of their 109. Denver got back to relying on their size, got back to picking out their size matchups. Aaron Gordon hunting smaller defenders, able to get seals and pin downs. They got him some more easy looks. In the Murray-Jokic two-man game, they were able to get Jokic on a lot of those releases more, like just deeper, just at the elbow area or deeper, like into the paint, where he can just shoot, which is right on the catch. He can just shoot that flip shot. You really got to appreciate Jokic and just the ease with which he hits those little float shots in those like kind of dead spots and dead areas, where it's almost like an awkward place to shoot the ball when you catch it and you're open. He hits those. They're like layups for him. And for like the average big man and even just basketball player in general, like that area, that like 8 to 12 foot area that like you catch the ball there, your instinct is usually Most players don't just stop and just shoot it, even though you might be wide open right there. What opened things up for Denver, it seemed like, was because since Jamal Murray got going early, Miami started blitzing Jamal Murray. There were a few times where they would blitz Murray and Jokic was still open on the release. And it's like, if you're going to, someone from the backside has to come up and meet Jokic. And then it happened. I think they got it. They did it a couple times. I think they got a turn. I think Gabe Vincent came in and stole the pass to Jokic the one time when they blitzed Murray around half court. But if Miami feels like they have to, or they're going to keep blitzing Murray, I feel like they just need that third rotation defender from the back to make sure they tag, not just even tag, but maybe even just take away Jokic. Because once the ball gets to him and it's advantage offense, if he has a 4-on-3, that's worst case scenario with him as a passer. Like he's probably going to beat you with the pass in that situation. So I feel like that's one area for Miami. If they're going to have to keep, or if they're thinking about continuing to double Jamal Murray like that more, they've got to get back to, their discipline, their quickness, and rotating to Jokic quicker. But that's what happens when Murray and Jokic are both at their best and are both in such a rhythm, like offensively. When you have two great offensive players that are tapped into their greatness and that are in that kind of great rhythm, they force you to do things. You're basically at their will. That's the kind of duo performance that you're not going to beat that unless one of two things happen. What I mentioned before, Miami kind of goes berserk with a collective effort. Guys come off the bench, knock down threes, because other than Murray and Jokic, it was the Christian Brown game. Denver had one guy. I mean, Bruce Brown gave you good minutes. Jeff Green gives you good minutes, but Christian Brown had 15 off the bench. And Christian Brown was the best player outside of Jokic, Murray, Butler, Adebayo in game 3. Christian Brown. And the only other way Miami wins a game like that and wins when Jokic and Murray are really have it going like that. I saw JJ Redick post a video talking about Miami after their game 2 win, and he was kind of making the argument that maybe Jimmy Butler doesn't have to go ballistic for Miami to win. Maybe we don't need a vintage crazy playoff Jimmy performance for Miami to win. I'm pretty sure Jimmy's gonna have to have at least one ballistic game. One of your two stars or both have to go pretty ballistic. They have to try to match what the guys on the other side are doing. Murray and Jokic combined for 66 points in this game. Both had 30-point triple-doubles. I know we all have great respect, as we should, for Jimmy and Bam as a duo and as the two best players and the two stars of the Miami Heat. It looks like they both may have to go to another level to counter what Murray and Jokic are doing right now. Bam played well. Jimmy played well. They combined for 50 points. That's pretty good. But when you have two guys on the other side that go special, now I'm starting to think that, and when I thought about it before, when I saw JJ Redick say that, I'm like, I don't know if Miami, look, this is the finals at the end of the day. You're going to need your best player to have a signature game at some point, especially when Jokic is out there doing what he's been doing. And if Jamal Murray is right there still able to do that, yeah, Jimmy Butler is going to have to need a ballistic game, at least one. It may need to be game 4. I predicted after game 2 that we would split in Miami because I really feel like these two teams are just really good. Miami coming off a loss, I feel like Miami responds with toughness and energy and urgency. I feel like Jimmy's going to need to have a big time game, and it might need to be game 4. That's the thing about Jimmy as a scorer too. The fact that he's not a Carmelo or one of these great individual scorers where that's the main part of his stardom is like his individual scoring. In some of the earlier rounds of the playoffs, I mean, there were times when Jimmy looked like the best player in the league. I mean, times where he looks like the next coming of Dwayne Wade. Not so much in terms of downhill, shifty side to side. Wade was way different with that stuff. But in terms of his mid-range game, just his fluidity and confidence and the shot creation, I mean, offensively, Jimmy was looking better than ever. Jimmy is not known as a great scorer. That's not what you go to him for. He can get a bucket, and I just have to be honest, I struggle with the whole Jimmy Buckets nickname. I just feel like it doesn't always hold. Like Jimmy can get a bucket now. Jimmy can get a bucket. I don't know who else saw the clip or if you just read the quote from Damian Lillard out there today. And the Dame stuff is starting to heat up a little bit. The clock, it might be Dame time. Time might be running out in Portland with Dame right now, because now maybe the first time we're hearing him say, I watched the clip. You got to watch the clips for context. You can't just read the quote, because reading it will just make it seem like he said, yeah, I would love to go to Miami. The person whose show or podcast or whatever he was on was asking him about a few different teams. If there were hypothetically a trade, like which one of these teams would sound attractive to you? And he said, like, well, obviously Miami. I feel like he just heard Miami and was like, well, why wouldn't I say Miami when, we know they have a great organization and franchise. They're in the finals right now. We know what they bring basketball wise, but it's also like you named places where Miami's the obvious choice out of those cities you just named. So I just feel like when you watch the clip, it wasn't just him saying, yeah, I'd love to, send me to Miami. I'd love to be there. He was picking from different options. But that being said, I will go back to when Kevin Durant was asking out of Brooklyn. And I did a video because the two teams that were apparently at the top of his list were Phoenix, which is where he ended up at, and Miami. And I did a video saying that Miami should have gotten into the KD sweepstakes at the time. I wasn't sure if they would, but I felt like they should have, to mainly get Jimmy Butler a primary scoring running mate on the wing. I felt like that was something Miami should have been more interested in. Now, that was also me feeling like Miami was going to backtrack a little bit. And for people who watched them this season, it felt like they did. It felt like I was right. And it was like, man, they should have swung for another star, KD or something, because it looked like this season they didn't look like a championship team, right? And they kind of flipped the switch and got hot at the right time. I don't know if Jimmy Butler is explosive enough offensively to beat an explosive offensive player like Jokic, and then another offensive player at guard in Jamal Murray. What Jamal Murray can do offensively in terms of breaking out is more dangerous to me than what Jimmy Butler can do. Playoff Jimmy is real. We've seen him dismantle the Knicks. We saw him take Boston's soul. I mean, we've seen elite performances from Jimmy. It can end up being a little unfortunate for Jimmy because, his first time in the finals, it was against LeBron and AD. He gets back to the finals. He's got Murray and Jokic. When they're on like that, when they're going, I don't know if Jimmy and Bam can counter that, can stop that, or outdo that. Gabe Vincent, he led them in scoring in game 2. I'm not saying Gabe Vincent's the most important player, but they need everybody. Gabe Vincent was in foul trouble. He got 3 fouls, and I think his third foul was that one when he bumped into Aaron Gordon, and that was a terrible foul call. But they were without Gabe Vincent for, I think, most of the first half. He got in foul trouble with 3. You need more guys playing well and scoring if Murray and Jokic are playing that well. Off the top of my head, from what I remember watching in some of Miami's zone possessions, it looked like Denver. Two things that I noticed. One, I noticed Denver attacking more from the short corner as opposed to the middle. The other thing Denver did really well against the zone, which Jamal Murray did well, and then Christian Brown was really aggressive with it in his minutes in the second half, just driving the ball against the zone. This wasn't a great game for Denver's role players. Like KCP, Aaron Gordon did good things for them, what he usually does. Michael Porter Jr. barely gave them much offensively. Again, Christian Brown, his 15 points off the bench were huge. He was the best player outside of the four stars between the two teams. Does this series come down to if Jimmy Butler is able to produce one, maybe even two big games? Jimmy's not going to go out there and try to do it by himself. That's what I really admire about him. I mean, you have to. Like, he's not going to force the issue just to get up his 30 shots just because he's a scorer and I have to score for my team to do well. And even not being that kind of player, he could still get 40 on a good night. But now is the time when you kind of have to come in saying, if I have to get 40 to win this game, let me show you that that's exactly what I can do and what I'm about to do. You know, great scorers just have that mentality about them. Jimmy Butler's a great player. I don't go to like great scorer for Jimmy. I don't know if you guys do. I know people call him Jimmy Buckets and stuff, but I don't consider Jimmy Butler a great scorer. I think Jokic and Murray, especially after this game, they're too good, and Denver's too good to not have your best player have at least one big time game. Miami didn't score 100 in game one, they lost. They didn't get to 100 in this game, they lost, right? So a lot of it really is about how much offense can Miami produce collectively to match what Denver's going to do. Denver's going to score 100. They lost game two, but they still got to 100. So Denver's going to score. Miami can score, but it's I think it's why they didn't look great during the season. They had ups and downs. They can look putrid sometimes offensively. As hot as they can get and as good as they can look offensively at times, it still comes down to like their two best players, Jimmy and Bam, they're not natural scorers. Again, it's fine, and I think it's perfect for the system they're in, but they're not natural scorers. So when I talk about Miami, you know, not going for KD when they had the chance, and now with Damian Lillard saying that, you know, he wouldn't mind being a member of the Miami Heat, I wonder what happens, and we'll see what happens over the next couple weeks and how the series plays out. You know, if they lose, Miami might be fine. They may not see it as like, okay, let's, you know, maybe we do need another star piece. Maybe we do need to add another offensive weapon to the mix. So I think that would be justified because you did this without Tyler Hero. I also would understand if Miami were interested in looking at some deals for Damian Lillard and bringing in especially a point guard like that. Like, can you imagine Jimmy having an offensive running mate, you know, scoring, like elite scoring player like a Damian Lillard, like a Kevin Durant, but especially at point guard. I mean, I think Damian Lillard, Jimmy Butler backcourt. I mean, I think that works in so many ways. Now we find out what Jimmy and Bam are prepared to do. Now we need to see Jimmy and Bam at their best. If Jimmy and Bam don't give us a really signature, borderline explosive performance as a duo in one of these next couple games, you know, again, if Miami doesn't have an explosive game from three, if they don't see a few different guys hit several threes, you know, and really get going, if they don't have that collective, wholesome offensive and defensive effort like they did in game two, if they don't have guys step up like that, the only way is for Jimmy and Bam to step up and say, all right, our turn. Jokic and Murray just showed them, like, you guys are going to have to be better than good to beat us. That's how good we are. That's how good we feel right now. I'm Martin Sories. This is the Basketball Society podcast. Stay tapped in for more coverage of the NBA Finals. I'll be right back after Game 4 to give you my reaction, thoughts, and analysis. Stay tapped in. Subscribe wherever you're listening from to the show. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you guys next time.